Okay, I'm Chris Wallen, I'm a meditation teacher.
I'm Dan Keneally and I'm a meditation teacher.
And today we are looking at the phrase, meditation makes you passive, which we believe to be a myth. So we'll be discussing that. What comes up for you, Dan, when you hear that?
I think maybe people misunderstand what the word passive means.
Okay.
If people think that meditation makes you passive, is that coming from meditators or non-meditators? I would suggest that meditators would say that they are not more passive, whereas non-meditators would look at meditators and say they are passive. I think in actual fact what you'll find is that meditation makes you less reactive. Less reactive. The opposite of passive is active. And I think meditation makes you active. What do you think?
That's exactly the point I was going to say. Less reactive and less pushed around by other people's thoughts, situations in the world. You're a bit more grounded, and that's a stronger place to be, rather than being carried away by the stresses of life. It feels like a stronger place. But I get the kind of image. I think it, and when you said is it non-meditators, I think it's an idea I had before I started meditating, was that meditators were like monks. They were very passive. There was a connection with Buddhism perhaps, where it's do nothing, don't do anything wrong, tread lightly, and it was a misconception that I had, really.
What if I suggested that instead of more passive, meditators are more selective in what they choose to engage in? As you say, it's a really strong foundation for someone to be when they have got the ability in the moment to decide how and when and if they engage. I think what you'll find with meditators is they don't tend to get involved in what they don't want to get involved in. And that's what I mean by being more selective. In this moment, I'm not going to choose to engage in this conversation in the way that other people may be engaging, because I don't really see the need to engage. Or, there's a situation, I don't need to get involved. Previously, I might have got involved, but I don't need to get involved. That action doesn't serve me in this moment in time.
And that is actually, not that you're above that issue, but it's just not for you, and you're not just being pulled into it. And I think we can be pulled into stuff from a place of inferiority or worry. So we get dragged into arguments or conversations or situations because we feel a bit unstable or a bit worried. But meditators will have this sort of groundedness, this well of stillness, I think. They'll be less likely. You just won't need to be pulled into these things. And in that way, I think you probably are stronger. Definitely stronger than I was before.
Well of stillness is a really good way of putting it. In the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is speaking to Arjuna on the battlefield, and he encourages him to get into a state of yoga, to get out of his fight or flight moment, to engage in the battle. And Krishna says, Yogastha Kuru Karmani, which means established in being, perform action. And the action part is the opposite of being passive. Established in being, establish yourself in a state of yoga. It essentially means meditate and connect with that inner well of stillness that you just described in. From that state, you can decide how and when to engage in right action. And right action means engaging in a way that is honest and pure, with good intention, with respect, with truthfulness, all these great qualities. And I think that's what meditation does to someone in terms of making them active, is engaging in right action that meets the need of the time for themselves and those around them. It's not passive, it's selective, and it's with really good intention.
I really like that, and it's making me think of this active creation part of active, the creativity. There's lots of famous meditators that are quite very productive or very creative, and I feel like they're really able to they have lots of ideas, but they're able to take them and move forward with these ideas. There is a type of action there that the meditating brings. You know when it's the right action, and you know how to channel that energy into action to make it happen, rather than being scattered by distracting situations, thoughts, people. It definitely has refined that ability to put yourself into that state of doing.
What you're saying then is that meditation gives you an efficiency with how you operate and navigate tasks, activities, challenges, day to day. Becoming really efficient with your time, it just cuts out a lot of the noise, which goes back to the point that we were making about I don't have to engage in X, Y, and Z because I want to engage in A, B, and C instead. And you navigate through life more on your own terms. I would suggest again that if it's passive, if that's something that people think about meditators, I would suggest that they start to meditate and experience for themselves what it means to have more control and more confidence in what you do. And then when people say you're quite passive, there's an inner smile that happens because you know that you're navigating life far better than you were maybe a few months ago before you started to meditate.
Definitely, yeah. And I think people have this image of people sitting in the lotus position and meditating, but that's you only sit and meditate for about 20 minutes twice a day. It's not like you're doing that all the time, and it's not like meditation will draw you into wanting to do that all the time. I mean, it might want you to. You might get some good experiences and want to meditate more. But I feel like there's a slight egoic kind of worry of people that they might end up just completely disappearing into doing nothing. I think that's the ego just sort of being, or the mind just being resistant to stillness, really, or a bit of calm. But interesting to explore. That's something for everyone to find out on their own journey. But I would encourage people that is not the case. From our points of view, we've become more active, more creative, more in tune with with our purpose for meditating than before, haven't we?
Definitely. There's great power in stillness. Maybe the most power can be found in pure stillness. Here passive, see less reactive. But what's actually happening to the body when we become less reactive? Our ability to respond to stressful situations improves. Our ability to intentionally or unintentionally react in situations. There's a great study by Hans Selye from the 20th century called General Adaptation Syndrome, and he suggests that we all have what's called an adaptation energy, which is like a battery level of our ability to respond to stressful situations. And activities like meditation tops up your battery so that when it depletes, when you go through the day, you just keep topping it back up. Having the ability to react well to stressful situations allows you to navigate them with calmness, with clarity, with grace, with space. And you don't get flustered as much as you used to. And I think when people see people who have a calm disposition or who never seem to get too excitable, it's just because their level of operating is just at a much calmer level. They don't get worked up so much, or they don't react so much. Becoming less reactionary isn't necessarily passive. I think there's a really, really subtle difference.
There is, yeah. And there is a kind of activeness in, like, when we see how that will become, when we meditate, we become aware of that battery, and when we're a bit depleted, we're like, no, I'm not going to get involved in something for a bit. I'm just going to take time, maybe meditate or do something else. We just become aware of that battery. And there's a kind of managing there that's active. It's like, no, I value my time and I value my mental capacity. I'm just aware of it more now and I value it. It's a managing, but it's also a not managing it just kind of happens more naturally. It's not a very thinking mind place. We're just like, no, I'm not going to engage in that. Or just on with other things, the stuff that matters. And there's less of that kind of busyness of the mind that just wastes energy.
Yeah, I would suggest that choosing not to react is in itself an action.
Yes, I love that.
I don't think it's passive. Passive would be to not make a decision at all. You're making a decision not to engage. That in itself is a really strong action, because that comes from a place of principles or moral or ethics, or empathy for the situation. So I think to some people it might seem passive because you're choosing not to engage, but that choice could be a really strong action.
Yeah. No, I love that. We've summarised it in a much better way.